Welcome to Your Family's Health. This is Professor Joan Buckley from the Department of Nursing here at Nassau Community College. Your Family's Health is a program that focuses on the healthcare issues and the resources available to you here in Nassau County. On the show, we speak to experts from around the country to keep you up to date on current healthcare issues and trends. And today we're going to be speaking to Ona Gritz, who is a poet. She's a child's author, and most recently she wrote a book, On the Whole, a story of mothering and disability. So if you want to know more about how to stay healthy in Nassau County, stay tuned for the next half hour to the Voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. And we want to welcome to our show Ona Gritz. Now,
Hi.
I know. Hi. What is Ona Gritz? Who is Ona Gritz? I want you to tell the listening audience a little bit about, obviously I said you're a poet, you're a child's author, you've received awards, you've had books published, more recently the one that we just spoke about. But who are you? Like, why? What is your story?
Oh, well, like you said, I'm a writer. I've written children's books and poetry, and that's kind of where I started. And then I began writing nonfiction literally when I decided I had a story to tell about my disability, which is cerebral palsy, and how it affected me as a mother.
So some of the people in the listening audience may know how that would affect you, but just really how and cerebral palsy is a wide range of symptoms or things, so everybody's a little different. So tell them a little about your experience with cerebral palsy, like what it is and how it affected you specifically.
Well, it's a birth defect. It's damage that happens to the brain, usually during birth or shortly thereafter, and it affects people, as you said, very differently depending on the extent of the damage and where in the brain that it happens. But it affects motor skills. So people with disabilities with cerebral palsy don't have the messages that go to the muscles get garbled, or they don't get sent clearly. And my version is called hemiplegia, which means it affects only half of my body, the right side of my body. And so I don't have as good a balance as someone without it. I have a limp, and I don't have the fine motor skills on my right side that I have on my left. And I'm lucky in that it's a very mild case, but it also allowed me to kind of forget about it a lot of the time because I didn't do especially physical work, and then I had a baby, and suddenly I had very physical work to do. And it was really hard for me, and I wasn't prepared for how hard it was going to be.
Is that what inspired you to write the memoir? Was that what motivated you, or in the beginning were you just so overwhelmed it didn't even cross your mind to write about it? But when did you realize that this is something that other people go through and you need to share it?
Well, I actually started by writing a column for a literary journal called Literary Mama that had published some of my poems.
Yeah.
But it wasn't when my child was small. I managed to write one children's book when he was very small by thinking up verses while I was pushing him in his stroller. That's about what I could accomplish in the early years. But when he was about 8, I met my current husband, who also has a disability, a very different disability. He's blind. But it kind of made me start thinking about disability in a different way, and I got this idea that I wanted to do something for people with disabilities, and if I was going to do something, I would write, because that's where my skill set is. So I contacted Literary Mama, and I proposed this column, and I was actually thinking, I didn't know if it would be of interest to anyone. It was such a specific experience to me. But like you mentioned, it really is a very universal experience to be a new mother and face your limitations and feel incompetent. And so it touched a lot of people with and without specific disabilities.
Now, when you had your first child, and I don't know if you have others, but when you had your son, Was there a time before this that you realized that this disability is a disability? I mean, if it's how you're born, this is how I always look at someone with a disability. They have the advantage because this is how they were born.
Exactly.
So they've adjusted to it for their life. And so it doesn't necessarily become a disability. Sometimes it's it's just their ability. So as you were growing up, how did it affect you prior to having your family and having to really, someone else was counting on your fine motor coordination?
Right. That's such a good question, and that's exactly right. From my experience, my body is just my body. It's the only one I've ever known.
Yeah.
I think it would be strange if I were to suddenly have abilities that I didn't have before. So I think there were things I understood and things I didn't. I had to wear a leg brace. When I was very small, I had to wear it at night. And I literally believed in some way that was the disability, and that if I wasn't wearing the leg brace and if it was hidden away in the closet like it was during the day, then my disability was kind of a secret, or it wasn't really there. This is as a small child. And I remember a neighbor child saying to me one day when we were the only two kids out on the block, "Let's walk like people who limp." And I started to imitate her, and follow along. And she said, "Just walk like you always do. You walk like people who limp." And that was the first time I knew that it was something visible to people.
Yeah.
And then, of course, as I got older and into adolescence, it was like a feature that I wished I didn't have in terms of, how attractive am I and how popular can I be and all the things that teenage girls worry about.
Yeah, and teenage boys too. It's that whole age group. So when you wrote the book on the whole story of mothering and disability, did you go back to your childhood and did you start talking about this whole path so that people that were looking at it now, because now, like we said, someone else is dependent on your abilities or your limits and things like that. So did you take people back to a time when they could relate to the experiences that you were having as a child? Like you said, going through adolescence, not wanting to be different and wondering just how different did you appear.
Yes.
Did you?
Yeah, the book does have some flashbacks to give context and kind of introduce me as a child as well as, the narrator in the present.
And was there a part of the book where all of a sudden, because I didn't read the entire book, I just kind of looked through it quickly because we wanted to get you on. But was there a time in your life when all of a sudden you said, you know what, this is me, and there gets this acceptance of your limitations and your disabilities or your abilities, however you look at them? Was there a specific moment or an event that you said, you know what, this is what it is, and it's not going to make me any different. I am who I am. Was there a specific event that really brought that to the forefront? Because you can't write about it if you haven't, I don't think as well as you did, you can't write about it if you haven't experienced and then had that revelation. And like you said, you want to give back. So that's what you want to give back, people, right? Am I on the right track with this?
Very much so. Though I would say it wasn't it wasn't one specific epiphany. It was a culmination of life experiences, I think, that led me to that place. And I think probably it had a lot to do with working with being a new mother and having these physical limitations, but also having this job that was so important, keeping this child healthy and safe. I couldn't worry about what people think, and I couldn't feel embarrassed to ask for help if I needed help because he needed it, and I needed to be the best mother I could be. And so I think the more superficial concerns kind of fell away because I had a important job to do. So I think that was a part of it, and I think another part of it was falling in love with somebody else who had a disability and being able to have conversations with that person about what it felt like, and just his disability is impossible to hide. and why would he hide it? And that kind of gave me the message that, this is just a part of who he is, and it's fabulous. We have this wonderful life, and so my disability is just a part of who I am, too.
Wow. And how about your son? How does he talk about this?
It's so interesting. He
has no disability, right?
He has no disability. In fact, he's an athlete.
Oh, my goodness.
He's a rower. He's 20 now.
Okay.
And he's abroad. He's studying in Italy. And I would say, he would talk about it a little bit growing up as it came up. Like, I would tell him when I was holding his hand and crossing the street that it's important that I hold my left hand, because that's my hand where I can keep you the safest. And he'd ask me questions about that. There was one time he was telling me about some cranky adult he'd run into who also happened to have some kind of limp or some kind of visible disability. And he said, nobody minds your limp because you're nice.
Oh, my goodness.
But recently, I had an article came out in the New York Times that was mostly about my marriage to my current husband. But, of course, it talked about my, sort of the bi-disability relationship. And he read it. And we, because he's away, we're mostly just texting now. And he texted me and he said, it was so interesting. I had no idea that being a mother was hard on you. Makes sense. I'm like, I'm glad you didn't notice that,
Isn't that
I was
funny?
Struggling.
Isn't that funny? Have you gotten any feedback from people that have read the article? Like, that is where we found you, actually, in that article. And have you had feedback from other people that also didn't realize how hard this was? Like, you have the blog, or you have the column in the article. When you get like editorials to your pieces, do people say anything that you say, wow, I really made a difference, I really hit home with them? Yeah.
In fact, there's a young woman who wrote to me, and we're going to meet and have tea.
Oh, nice.
She has the exact form that I have. She has slight hemiplegia on the right, and so she asked if she's going to come in from New York. I live outside of Philadelphia, because she's never met anyone with a body like hers, and she wants to have a conversation face to face about it.
Wow.
And a lot of people wrote to me, and just kind of said, they related to it in some way.
Wow, this is the perfect time for a break. You're listening to Your Family's Health on the Voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. This is Joan Buckley, and we're going to continue talking to Ona Gritz about parenting with a disability after this short break.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. Waking up every day, lifting him from the bed to the wheelchair to the car to get him to therapy on time, it's no small task between the doctors and the diagnosis, but nothing can disable this love. This is my big brother, my hero. He's part of me, like my arms and legs. So I'll be his. See, there's no time for tired. This starts again tomorrow. He'll be waiting for me. I wake up for him. I know he needs me, but I'm the lucky one. Even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community, or call 877-333-5885. Caregiving Resource Center. Support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Your Family's Health. This is Joan Buckley and Ona Gritz, and we will be continuing our talk about, now we started our talk with parenting and a disability, but you have like a dual thing, a parenting and then partnering. Was that a conscious effort, or were you, was it just like it happened? You actually ran into someone who had a disability very different than yours, but that your connection was so much clearer. Was that deliberate, or was that just accidental, that kind of thing? Like, how did you meet your husband is what I'm asking you.
Well, we met in a writing workshop, in a poetry workshop.
So you had a lot in common.